Hello everyone. Welcome to Recovery Manager Plus online workshop series. Thank you for finding time in your busy day to join us. This is the third and the last day of the 3-day workshop series. Across the last 2 weeks, we took up the Active Directory and bare metal recovery modules of Recovery Manager Plus. For those of you who missed out, please watch the video from last week. I will send you the video link in the chat at the end of the session. This week, we will explore the new virtual environment backup and recovery module of Recovery Manager Plus and discuss these topics. We will see how to configure an ESXi and vCenter service with Recovery Manager Plus. We will also see how to configure HyperV hosts and SCVMMs with Recovery Manager Plus. We will also see how to create full and incremental automated backup schedules, how to manage them, and such. We will also see how to perform a full restore, disk restore, and revert. We will discuss easy backup and restore options of Recovery Manager Plus, and we will also go over handling backup repositories. Well, to introduce myself, I'm Eben Jose, and I'm a member of the tech team here at AD Solutions. The market has seen a technological landslide with the advent of virtualization. Companies have adopted virtualization to cut down on the deployment cost for better resource utilization, for load balancing, and so on. We observed that a lot of our clients had deployed their environments in virtualized platforms like vSphere and Hyper-V hosts. As a backup solution, we decided to extend our horizons, and that's when we expanded our services to backup virtual environment. Currently, we provide backup options for the two giants in virtualization, VMware and Hyper-V. The Gartner Group says that 43% of the companies that were immediately put out of business by a major loss of computer records, and another 51% permanently closed their doors down within 2 years, leaving a mere 6% survival rate. Basically, only 6% of companies survive longer than 2 years after losing data. So that's the reason enough to have a backup solution for your virtualized environments. Now, the obvious question that needs to be asked is, why do we need a backup solution when we can take snapshots in your virtual environments and revert to them? Well, VMware has gone ahead and answered this question perfectly for us. The recommended practice is to not have more than 2 snapshots at a time for a particular virtual machine. So building a chain of snapshots can deeply affect the performance of your system. They also recommend not to use a single snapshot for more than 24 to 72 hours. Moreover, snapshots work as delta disks, that is, they record the change from the base disk. So if the base disk itself is destroyed, the snapshots cannot help you. So over time, you cannot depend on your snapshots as backups. Having established that, let's go to the demo installation. Now, to use the Virtual Environment Backup and Recovery module, log into Recovery Manager Plus and go to the Virtual Environment tab here. The Virtual Environment drop-down here allows you to toggle between your virtual environments Hyper-V and VMware. Let's start with VMware for now. The controls are pretty much the same for handling Hyper-V environment as well. You can see that I've already added a VMware ESXi host here. This is an ESXi host, and this is a vCenter server. Let's go ahead and add another ESXi host. Click on the Add New Server button here to do that. Select your environment. I'm going to select VMware. Type in the DNS or IP address of your ESXi host. Type in the web service port. For me, it's the default 443. Type in the credentials to the server. Hit add when you're done to add this ESXi host. Now this is a version 6.5 ESXi host. Currently we support ESXi and vCenter versions from 5 up to 6.5. Now that's 5.0, 5.1, 5.5, 6.0, and 6.5. And for Hyper-V, we support serverOS versions 2008, 2008 R2, 2012, and 2012 R2. I'm going to hit add now to add this particular ESXi host. Now, one thing to be noted before you add this ESXi host is that if your ESXi host is being managed by a vCenter, then you must supply the credentials to the vCenter server here. You need to supply the credentials to the management server. I'm going to hit add. Now, the VMware module employs an agentless method to map your virtual environment. So it is discovering all the VMs inside the ESXi host. You can see there are 8 VMs now that has been detected. For vCenter, we will detect all the virtual machines inside all the ESXi hosts managed by it. Now, our licensing model does not restrict the number of virtual machines in a host. Like I said, the controls are pretty much the same for Hyper-V environment as well. Let's try and add in a Hyper-V host. Click on the Add New Server button here. Select Hyper-V. Now you have two options, whether you're going to add it as a standalone Hyper-V host or an SEVMM. Type in the server name or IP address and provide the required credentials and hit add, and you can add this Hyper-V host. So that's Hyper-V. I'm going back to VMware. Now we're in the configuration page now, as you can see here. And we have a lot of controls here. Let's go ahead and check them out now. The edit button here allows you to change the credentials to your ESXi host or vCenter server. The refresh button here forces Recovery Manager Plus to sync with your environment. Since we use an agentless mechanism, if you have added new virtual machines or a new host to the vCenter altogether, these configuration changes need to be brought into the scope of Recovery Manager Plus. Now, we will be syncing with the environment periodically, but if you want a change to be reflected immediately, you will have to sync using this control here. Now, this button here allows you to disable the server. The virtual machines residing in these servers will no longer be considered for backups. This fourth control here deletes the server and removes it from the scope of Recovery Manager Plus. You can see the total number of virtual machines here, the username, the licensing information, and whether any virtual machines are configured for backups from these servers. All of these information you can see here. For the list of VMs that have been detected for a particular server, you can click on this list of VMs link here, and it will take you to a list of virtual machines. You can change the server from here. So you can see the entire list of virtual machines in these servers. On hovering, you can see a backup and restore control coming here. We will come back and explore this more at the end of the session. For now, let's go back. Now, unlike the VMware module, the Hyper-V module uses its own backup agent to perform the backups and to track the change blocks of the disk that have been modified. Now, in order to install the agent, we will need to provide the credentials and click on the Install Link Agent. So when you add an SCVMM for Hyper-V module, all the hosts that are in the SCVMM, all the hosts in the SCVMM will be detected, and shown and listed out like this. So you can select the specific host and provide the required credentials and click on the Install Link Agent to install the backup agent in these hosts. Now I'm going back to my product. We're again back in the configuration page. You can see the license management button here. Basically, Recovery Manager Plus licensing is based on the number of Hyper-V or VMware hosts. We won't restrict you on the number of virtual machines you can back up from each host. Clicking on the license management button here, you can see the license management pop-up has come back. The unlicensed host will be listed on the left and the licensed host will be on the right. Now, if you want to license a host, select it and click Add. It's on the right side now. And to unlicense this host, select it and remove it. Now, on unlicensing, you will be thrown a warning that says the existing backups of all the virtual machines under this host that is being unlicensed will no longer be available for restore. If you save this, so click yes for now. Yes. Now, if you save this license configuration for now, this means that you will no longer be able to use the backups from this host that is being unlicensed. Now, you would have noticed a small checkbox here. The fact is, even if you unlicense this host, the backup files of the existing backups will not technically be deleted. We will just archive it. So should something go wrong drastically in your environment, after you have unlicensed the host, we can still bring these files back from the archive. However, if you're confident that you will no longer need these backups, you can check this box and select Save. This will actually, delete the backup files along with the unlicensing. So that's that. I'm bringing the license management pop-up back. So this is the unlicensed server and these are all licensed servers. Let's go to the backup page now. The backup module provides application-consistent backups using the Microsoft Volume Shadow Copy technology for virtual machines in Hyper-V and vSphere hosts. Here I've already created a number of backup jobs. Like the other modules, Virtual Backup module also allows for scheduling backup jobs. Let's create a schedule by clicking the Create Backup button here. Select the environment, give a name to the backup schedule. Now to select the virtual machines to be included in this backup, click on the plus icon here and select the backups. Select the virtual machines, sorry. You can select virtual machines from multiple servers to be backed up in the same backup job. So you can select the servers from here. So I'm going to mix and match a server from here. So the moment you hit add, you can see that these two virtual machines are from two different servers. So if a particular application is deployed across virtual machines from different servers, you can still handle them in a single backup job. Another thing to be noted here is that you can use the same virtual machine to be backed up by multiple backup schedules also. Here you can see the total size that is to be backed up is 10.41 GB. Our compression mechanisms will bring this size down to roughly 25% of the size shown here. Now, here this drop-down lets you choose the repository where the backup will store its files. If you want to add a new repository with Recovery Manager Plus, you can click this link here and provide the required credentials. The VMware module supports share paths and local directories for repositories, while the Hyper-V module supports only share paths. You can change the repository anytime, so even if your backups are scattered across repositories, at the time of restore, we will grab the required data from all the repositories and perform the restore. The next option is retention. We'll come back to retention in a bit. Now here you can see that these drop-downs let you set the frequency of the automated backups using these drop-downs. You can set it to daily, weekly, or monthly. So the design of these backups can be explained like this. So the first time the schedule is triggered, we will take a full backup and then consecutive incremental backups that will record only the disk writes since the last backup. These incremental backups make use of the change block tracking to track the area of the disk that has been modified, making the incremental backups much faster. By default, we will take up to 5 incremental backups, after which we will force a full backup of the virtual machine disks. However, should something change about the disk configuration, you have maybe added a new disk to the virtual machine or expanded a disk, or if an incremental backup fails for some reason, we will go ahead and perform a full backup like you see here, thus breaking the normal pattern of 5 incremental backups after a full backup. For Hyper-V, we will force a full backup after every 3 incremental backups. So a full backup and 3 incremental backups by design, and then a full backup. The idea of moving away from forever incremental pattern is to increase the stability of backups. So by introducing a full backup in the middle of the backup chain, the integrity of the backup increases. We don't just depend on the change block tracking data alone, because CBT data can get corrupted or disturbed randomly. So the periodic full backups inserted in the middle ensures minimal data loss in case of CBT failure. Now, if your data security policy requires you to have active full backups, periodic active full backups, then you can do so by selecting this checkbox here. So again, you have a full backup frequency which you can set using these drop downs. This will force the pattern to fully back up your disks at a predetermined frequency, regardless of the number of incremental backups that have been taken before that. Now coming back to retention here, unlike the other modules, the retention in this module is based on the number of full backups that need to be retained for a particular virtual machine under each backup schedule. Let's say you've set your retention to 2. This is how it would be. So the scheduler has been triggered periodically, and we have taken so many backups for a particular virtual machine. So at this point of time, say something went wrong and we have to take a full backup, but you've set your retention to 2. So right after this full backup, what would happen is retention will kick in and delete the first full backup and its corresponding incremental backups, like this. and then we will proceed with the normal pattern of taking backups, incremental backups. This will save a lot of storage for you. Going back to the installation now. So that was retention. Now you can add an extra layer of security to the backed up data by using the encryption control here, powered by AES 128 encryption. For now, let's leave it like that. On hitting create, you have successfully created a backup schedule to be run monthly on the 1st at 12 o'clock midnight. Here also you have a bunch of controls. Let's explore them. The edit button here allows you to change all the settings that we just configured for this backup. The backup name, the virtual machines. If you want to delete a virtual machine, you can just delete them like that. You can change the repository, you can change the retention count, the backup frequency, and so on. The disable button here prevents this backup from being automatically triggered at the set frequency. The backup now button here allows you to instantly trigger the next instance of this backup schedule. The delete button here deletes this backup job altogether. You can see the list of virtual machines that are being considered for this backup job by clicking this link here. So we are considering Eben_map and Neptune. You can see the backup status of the last time this job was triggered from this link here. So this backup has never been triggered. So this backup was triggered. The last time it ran was today at 4 o'clock 48 minutes now. So that is the last run time, and it was a successful attempt. On hovering, you can see a small link here. So this link will give you a detailed history of everything that happened for all the instances of this schedule. This is how it is. The first time this backup was triggered at 4:18, and then at 5:15, and then at 5:16. So the first time it ran, it took a backup of 2 GB of total data. This is the compressed size, and it took 8 minutes to do that. And then it took only 1 minute, because the first two are incremental backups. You can see that they incrementally backed up 2 virtual machines, while the first one completely fully backed up 2 virtual machines. So the first instance of this backup schedule was 2 full backups. It took 8 minutes, and it compressed down all the data to 2 GB. The second time around, it compressed down the data to 12 MB, and it took only 1 minute, and it performed incremental backup of 2 virtual machines. So that's about the backup configuration. Let's move on to the restore tab now. When it comes to the restore module, there are 3 different options to performing the restore. So there is a full restore operation, disk restore, and revert. For the full restore, you again have 2 different options. You can either choose to fully restore the virtual machine to the same host from where it was backed up, or you can restore it to another licensed host. So if you are restoring it to the same host, what we would do is delete the existing virtual machine and create an exact replica in its place. You can also choose to restore a clone of the existing backed up VM under a different name in the same host. So if you choose to have another running replica of the backed up virtual machine, you can restore it to the same host under a different name. In that situation, we will not delete the existing machine, and we will not overwrite it. We will just create an exact replica in that same host. If you're restoring to a different host, we will duplicate the entire set of disks and configuration of that virtual machine in that different host. For disk restore, we will only restore the data and not the configuration for that particular virtual machine. One thing to be noted while performing disk restore is that we cannot proceed with snapshots in place. So you will have to delete or consolidate your snapshots. For revert, it is a sort of disk restore, but a little different. It is a way of restoring the state of virtual machine disks to the last known backup point with much lesser delay. For a normal disk restore, we will need to first write the entire disk data from the full backup. So if you are going to restore to this point, we will first need to write the entire data from this point onwards up to this point. So the data from the full backup, the next incremental, and then finally this one. Now revert allows you to skip over this step. We continuously track the changes from the last known backup point and only update the required disk areas back to the production at the time of restore. This will save a lot of time while restoring the data. This option is supported only by VMware module as of now. Let's check all of these options in the product. To initiate a restore, click on this button here. Select your environment, give a name for the recovery option, select the type of restore. Clicking on full restore, you will get a checkbox that says restore to original location. Now, this option will allow you to restore the virtual machine to the same host or to a different host altogether. So if you check this box, you are restoring the virtual machine to the same host by overwriting the backed up existing virtual machine. You take off this check and you can restore it to a different host altogether. Now imagine I had a virtual machine that was backed up from this particular ESXi host, and I've taken off this check and I'm going to select this host altogether again. So basically my virtual machine was in this host. I'm not going to opt for restore to original location. I'm going to select the option where I'm restoring to a different host altogether, yet I'm going to select the same host. Under this situation, if I select a VM and select a backup point, what would happen is we will not override the existing VM. We will just create a replica of this VM under a different name in the same host. In order to select a virtual machine, click on this plus icon here. Select the virtual machine that you want to restore, select the restore point, and click Save. For full restore, what we would do is we will check for a conflict of names in the existing environment. So even if you proceeded with this restore and this particular virtual machine existed in your environment, we will throw a warning saying that this virtual machine already exists. So you can change the name of the virtual machines using this change VM names link here and providing a new name. For a restore to the same location as it was backed up from, the existing virtual machine would just be deleted and this virtual machine would be created on top of it. For disk restore and for revert, you don't have such options. The disk data alone will be overwritten in the existing virtual machine. Selecting virtual machine like so and selecting the backup point, you can see that the restore point is this and this is the virtual machine to be restored. For revert, there is no option to select the backup point because the revert always brings the state of the virtual machine back to the last known backup point. So saving it there. This power on option allows you to power on the virtual machine at the end of restore. If you take off this check, the virtual machine will be in a switched off state at the end of restore. The moment you hit restore, the restore operation will start. Let's quickly go back to the configuration page. Select the link where you can see the list of virtual machines. So on hovering, you can see a whole lot of virtual machines, backup and restore option. Click on the backup option. So these backup options allow you to quickly, fully back up a single virtual machine into a repository of choice. So if you are only interested in taking a full backup of your virtual machine as a one-time operation and not as a schedule over time, this is what you need to do. Select the virtual machine, click on backup, give it a backup name, and select the repository and hit start to instantly start a full backup for this particular virtual machine. The same thing goes for restore. Hit restore and this will perform a full restore to the original location to a restore point of your choice and will always leave the virtual machine in a turned on state at the end of restore. This is called the easy backup and easy restore options. If you don't want to be confused by the multiplicity of options that you have, you can just select these two options. I'm going to go back to the repository page now. So this is where you can add and configure repositories with Recovery Manager Plus. To add a repository, you can click on the Add Repository button here and provide the share path or the local directory and the authentication. For local directories, you don't have to provide authentication. We will just use the logged on credentials. The Edit button here allows you to change the name of the repository name to a more convenient one. The Disable Repository button here prevents the backups from using this repository to save the backup files. The Delete Repository button removes this particular repository from the scope of Recovery Manager Plus altogether. Now we've seen a whole lot of controls here across these 4 pages for backup and recovery. But if you want to see a quick gist of everything that is going on in the virtual environment module, you can just go to the dashboard by clicking on the dashboard link here and going to the virtual environment tab. So you can see a whole lot of information here. So this card here shows you the number of servers that have been added to the product. Clicking on this link here, you can see the list of servers that have been added. We have 3 VMware servers that have been added and 1 HyperV server. Now here you can see out of sync as 0. This basically is the number of servers to which we couldn't establish contact to sync periodically. Here you can see the total number of virtual machines that have been detected across all the hosts in the product. You can also see the number of virtual machines that have backed up and the ones that are yet to be backed up. This card here shows you the number of host licenses I have purchased. So I have an unlimited number of host licenses for now. You can also see the number of hosts that have been detected across all the servers that have been added. You remember I have only 4 servers added to the product, yet I have 5 hosts. This is because these 2 servers are in the same vCenter. Here you can see the number of hosts that I've actually licensed. You can also see the statistics from the last 24 hours. You can see that I have 10 completed backups in the last 24 hours and 0 failed backups, and none of the backups are in progress right now. The second card here allows you to manage your repositories easily. We've listed down the virtual machines that are taking up most of your storage across backups. For this particular virtual machine, you can see that it is configured under 2 different backup schedules, taking up a whole lot of space. You might want to reconsider that. Now the third card here shows you a summary of all the repositories that you've configured in your virtual environment module. You can see the free space, the repository usage, that the amount of data that is being used by the backups and such. Now with that, we will wrap up the workshop series. Thank you all for joining the sessions. We've got big plans coming up down the road. Do hit us with your feedback, and I will be pausing the video feed now, but I will continue to answer your questions.